Cheap projector screens that promise big picture often end up looking like a gray wall with a few bright spots, and the disappointment hits you the moment you roll the screen out for the first movie night. I've been there buying a low-cost fabric that looked fine on the box, only to discover it washed out colors under even a tiny amount of ambient light, and the manual crank was more of a workout than a convenience. That's why I spent a good chunk of time comparing tensioned, ambient light-rejecting screens before I finally decided to try the Elite Screen Starling Tab Tension 2 in CineGrey 5D. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. What makes the Starling different from the cheap rolls you see on marketplace listings is the combination of a tensioned surface, a motorized lift, and a specially engineered gray material that actually rejects stray light. In theory, that sounds perfect for a living room setup with a couple of windows, but the real question is whether the extra cost translates into a noticeable improvement when you're actually watching a film or gaming on a 4K projector. First off, the size. At 106 inches diagonal, you get a viewing window just shy of 8 feet wide. In a dedicated media room, that size fills the space nicely, delivering that cinema feel without needing a massive wall. If you've got a modest bedroom or a tight basement, though, you might find the screen dominates the wall and forces you to sit farther back to hit the sweet spot. The sweet spot for a 106-inch 16:9 screen is roughly 1,214 feet away, so make sure your projector can throw a bright image at that distance, otherwise you'll be compensating with higher lamp power or a brighter source, which can eat up your budget. The CineGrey 5D material is where the screen really earns its keep. It's a mid-gray surface that absorbs ambient light rather than reflecting it like a white screen would. In my own setup, I have a north-facing window with blinds that never fully block sunlight. When the lights are on, a standard white screen still shows a washed-out sky in the background, but the Starling kept the black levels deep enough that the picture stayed punchy. That matters most for movies with dark scenes. Think Blade Runner or The Dark Knight, where you want shadow detail without the grayish look that cheap screens produce in daytime viewing. The motorized lift is another big selling point. The tubular motor runs up and down in a matter of seconds, and the remote, both infrared and RF options are included, means you can hide the screen with the press of a button without getting up from the couch. Installation does require a ceiling mount and a power outlet nearby, which can be a hurdle if you're renting or don't have a convenient power source. The included wall box makes wiring cleaner, but you still need to run a low-voltage cable from the motor to the power source, and the ceiling bracket is a little heavier than a simple manual pull-down kit. For anyone comfortable with a basic drill and a level, it's manageable, but Diag users might need to call in a professional, adding to the overall cost. Now, let's talk about the practical strengths and where the product falls short. The tensioned surface eliminates the sagging and ripples that cheap fabric screens develop after a few pulls. That means the image stays flat, which is essential for sharp 4K details. Because the screen is tensioned, it also feels more solid when you walk over it to clean or adjust the projector, unlike a loose canvas that flutters. The ambient light rejecting coating does its job, but it's not a magic blackout. If your room is flooded with direct sunlight, you'll still see some washout. So the screen shines most in controlled lighting conditions or rooms with modest natural light. On the downside, the price point is definitely higher than a basic manual screen. You're paying for the motor, the tension system, and the CineGrey material, and that adds up. If you already own a high-end projector with a high lumen rating and you typically watch in a darkened room, you might not need the extra light rejection capability, making the investment feel marginal. Also, the remote isn't the most intuitive. The infrared remote works fine as long as you're within line of sight, but if you have a long couch, you might need to switch to the RF remote, which adds another little learning curve. Who should buy this screen? If you're a home theater enthusiast who wants a picture that looks good both after sunset and during the day, especially if you have a living room with windows you can't fully block, the Starling's gray material will make a visible difference. It's also a solid choice for gamers who need a low-lag, crisp image and appreciate the quick hit and show feature when the kids come in.